Hey parents and coaches, are your kids using the right glove? The most important skill for youth athletes to learn is how to play proper catch. The problem is, most youth gloves are made with bad leather and are too big for small hands. They actually make it harder to play catch. That's why former Major League Baseball shortstop Kevin Smith created Cali gloves. Cali gloves are crafted from 100% Japanese kip leather and are the perfect size for kids. All Cali gloves come with palm slits, finger loops, and elastic wrist lacing that encourage proper hand placement, the right closing patterns, and give kids more confidence to go make plays. Cali gloves even allow parents to break in the glove without stretching out the fit. It's the glove Kevin wishes he had growing up, and the glove all his teammates want for their kids. Visit caligloves.com to learn more and help your kids play better catch. That's Cali Gloves, Kali gloves.com.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Dugout Dish Podcast. I'm Andy Kirikides, joined by my wonderful co-host, Mr. Keith Glaser. How we doing?
Great. How are you?
Good. Got another guest on, someone who's right down the road from you up in Rochester, but I'll kick it over to you for the intro here.
Sure. Tonight we're joined and we're excited to have Coach Dave Brust, who's the head baseball coach at Monroe Community College. He is one of the best, in my personal opinion, junior college coaches in the country. He's entering his 13th season for the Tribunes. They've gone to they've won multiple Regional 3 titles, and they've made at least 3 Division II World Series appearances under him. So tonight we are super excited to be joined by, and Coach, you are the first junior college coach that we've had on the podcast. We sit here and talk big game about how good we think junior college baseball is, and we've yet to have someone on. So we're super excited to have you join us tonight and talk some JUCO baseball. So welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. And, it's certainly an honor to coach at any level, but certainly going back to a place that I played and has an incredible history. So, I just kind of carry the torch. The groundwork was there from Dave Chamberlain, who's, ABCA Hall of Famer, and Skip and who's an NJCAA Hall of Famer. So I've been very blessed with having guys kind of pull me back. And I think, this kind of, takes me into, kind of how I got there, I guess, right? That's, yeah. I got out of pro baseball. I was not really, I think when a lot of guys end their playing career, some want to get right into coaching and some want to get as far away from it as possible. I kind of went through both experiences. So I was a good high school player. I played at the now defunct Cardinal Mooney High School, but I played for a Hall of Fame coach, Ed Natopsky, was very blessed, and who was a St. Louis Cardinal back in the 50s, and that type of thing. So he brought a lot of good fundamental baseball to young high school players, and so very blessed to be around him and what he stood for. And then strangely, the 80s, right? It's a whole different world than the recruiting world now. Somehow I got seen playing. I was a 5'11", 160-pound shortstop, and I didn't think I was a very good defender, but I could swing the bat, and somebody saw me play, and I ended up at the University of Maryland. And, certainly exciting. You're in the ACC, and you're in our world, when you're from Rochester, Maryland is south. It's south enough. So that was kind of like, right, we want to go south, playing in the ACC. This is a big deal. And it was a big deal. It was an incredibly hard experience. We had a tough year in the ACC, but it was culture shock, man. It was Section 5, Rochester, New York, down to the ACC, which I don't think a lot of young players are ready to be playing in the ACC when they're 18 years old. And I was kind of thrown out there and was not emotionally, psychologically, even physically ready for that. But great experience. But I opted to leave. So obviously, 40 years before the portal, but I portaled out to Monroe Community College, which kind of is how I landed. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not sure what I'm doing. I left Maryland, left scholarship money on the table, but it just was not a good fit. The program really wasn't developing players. And thank God I landed at Monroe Community College. Dave Chamberlain, Skip Bailey, Pete Dawes, and that was a true experience of how you develop guys. Everybody has their own plan, and everybody got attention and work. And granted, there was a lot of structure and an incredible amount of expectation with conditioning and winning. But it was an exceptional experience, and that got me off to Ball State, and I actually turned into a catcher in like 3 months and caught at the Division I level and played at Ball State and was signed by the Braves and played in the Braves organization. And so when I got out of professional baseball, like many guys do, they kick around the minors for 2 years. Granted, it was an incredible experience. I would never trade it in. It's kind of like another master's degree, but in baseball, but really in life. So it's hard. 142 games after 6 weeks of spring training, and I was going down as a catcher. So, it's a lifestyle. It's not a season. It's a lifestyle. And was very blessed with being around some special people, special coaches: Grady Little, Philip Wellman, Willie Stargell, Frank Howard, Phil Negro, Bruce Benedict. Right? I mean, blessed with so many incredible guys who impacted me. Luke Appling. I mean, these are guys you're probably like, who is that guy? These are all, but incredible instructors. But when I got out of pro baseball, I was like, oh, so kind of brokenhearted, kind of bitter. Kicked around for a while, and then I became a school teacher. I taught math and English in Spencerport Central Schools for 14 years. So I was becoming a better teacher, and thank God. And it put baseball a little bit on the back burner. And then it was Pete Dawes, who was a longtime coach at Monroe Community College, and he kind of enticed me back. And then Mike Kelly, who was the head coach before I got to Monroe, they're like, hey, you want to come out and, be a volunteer? And, I'm like, yeah. So this would have been like January of 2005, I think. 2005. And next thing you know, I'm like, man, I kind of like this, I kind of like this. This isn't bad. So it was a little different leaving sixth graders going to 18, 19-year-olds. But I was more just taking it in. I wasn't saying much, just kind of taking it all in. And then I started coaching in the NYCBL. You might remember the NYCBL, right? It's kind of on its deathbed a little bit right now, but nonetheless, the pre-perfect game is very competitive. And then next thing you know, I'm coaching there, and then one thing leads to next thing you know, I'm the GM and head coach with the Webster Yankees, and then the hook was set. I'm like, I'm loving this. I'm out. I finished up my 14th year. Mike Kelly decided to move on to California, got a job out there, and the AD at the time, who was, I coached under him, was Skip Bailey, and he basically worked his magic, and I was the fourth head coach in the history of the program in August of 2013. And man, it has been a very, very blessed, and it worked out. So all the dues, right? You hear this from young coaches, all the dues, I paid them all too. And I had a day job, so it took the pressure off. But I'm glad I paid them. I'm glad I was a volunteer. I'm glad I just kept showing up at the park and kind of getting a better and better feel for college baseball. But I became, my 14 years as a school teacher really, I thought, made me a better teacher, right? I mean, that's what we're not just teaching baseball, we're teaching life skills. We're getting kids to show up every day and hang in there and go to class and until they find their niche. And so that's kind of what happened. I'm very blessed. And again, 13 years has zipped on by, and I'm more excited than ever. I really am. I mean, it's there's hard times, and there's moments. We had a couple rough seasons in there. I can honestly say they force you to look in the mirror and like, okay, we got to get better. We got to recruit better. We got to do things differently. And it's been a great ride, and hopefully there's a lot more to come.
It's great. I hear, Andy, I think it's so interesting to hear, like, I hear Coach Rossi coming out of your mouth when you used to, like, because he taught for 39 years in the Guilderland School District. But working under him, it's the same thing. Like, and Carl was the same way when I worked for him. Like, you're not just coaching, you're a teacher as well. And I think and we do have a lot of coaches who listen to this podcast. I think there's a lot of truth to it. And I was blessed to come up with guys in this game that, for lack of a better term, were dinosaurs. Like, they had been around this, like they'd coached for so long, and it was such a theme in everything it was that they did. Like, it's not just coaching. There's way more to this than just coaching baseball. And I think when you can start making jumps as a younger coach when you realize that it's not just the what your swing path looks like or what your prep step looks like when you're going to a ground. Like, there's way more that goes into this than just the baseball aspect of it. And I think that you can, from a coaching standpoint, you become a better coach, at least in my personal opinion, when you start to realize that it's bigger than just the game. And there's a lot more things that are at play. And, you start worrying about kids going to class. And it's not because you're worried about their grades or staying eligible. I guess in some instances you might be, but it's more like, hey, when you leave here, you can't just no-show your job and think that you're going to be okay. It's teaching life skills. It's teaching accountability. It's teaching showing up for yourself and your teammates and, doing things when things get hard. Like, what are you going to do? Just fold when life gets tough? Like, that doesn't go well for anyone. Yeah. But it's, I always think I hear it all the time with, and I'm not saying you're old, coach, because you're not, but I hear it with guys who have been around for a very long time. Like, you hear like the common themes of like, this is teaching. It's coaching and teaching. It's not just coaching. And I think that for the younger coaches and people, and even if you're going through the process, like, you want a coach that, kind of echoes that sentiment when you go on visits and places you want to, like, you're looking at like, hey, what am I going to get out of this? Is this just baseball, or am I going to be a better human being when I walk out of the door here in 2 years or 4 years or 15 years if we have another pandemic? I think that that's important to at least keep in the back of your mind as a kid and a parent of, this is a guy that I want my kid to go play for because he'll be better for it when he leaves here at the end of his duration at that school.
Yeah, no question. And when I got out of professional baseball and I'm kind of I remember I sent all these letters out, right? Letters, right? I am getting old. So I sent out all these letters to try to get a grad job. Well, I got to stay in baseball. This was my immediate panic mode. When you get your letter that you're released from your contract, right? So you shed some tears and you're like, okay, what next? Oh, coaching. And I sent out all these letters and I got some pretty positive feedback and they were interested. And then I actually turned them down. I'm like, man, I'm not ready for this. And I am very thankful that I did, because I was not ready. I would have been, that kind of that old cliche of, well, I just would have been in teaching how I was taught. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that I always talk to my young assistants about. I was like, guys, you got to be very careful of that. There's reasons maybe coaches did things the way they did them, and it's not saying they're wrong, but you have to evolve with the players and the game. And it's okay to challenge the way we do things. There might be time for a change. And there's no way I would have been in a leadership role when I was 25, 26 years old and just getting out of professional baseball. I would have been not good. So I'm grateful I stayed away from it for a while. And I know that's not everybody's path, but that path was good for me, because right at the end of the day, Dave Chamberlain would always say, we want the guys are going to come in as boys and leave as men. And that still matters. That's still important. And it's our job to have structure and have accountability and have good relationships with our players, but have a very thick line of player, coach. And I think young coaches sometimes might struggle with that. So not that that's a problem with young coaches, but again, it's a challenge for them. And I certainly was not ready, and I'm glad I waited. And so ultimately, to be better at carrying on, getting these guys into good, responsible young men and moving on. That's what we want.
I think that's the part that I miss the most. Right? The games obviously are great. You get to put on the uniform and you get to go out there and watch your guys compete and try to put them in a good situation to win. The practices are awesome. you get to go out and challenge guys. We always used to kind of think of it as like games are for the players, practices are for the coaches.
Absolutely.
But it was the relationships that you build and being able to watch guys figure it out. And hopefully you played a role in that. The freshman who comes in and, is a little bit overwhelmed by what's going on and figuring out how to communicate with them, figuring out how to challenge them appropriately. And then the back end of it, watching them graduate, watching them move on to pro ball, whatever it might be. And then, looking up 10 years from now and seeing somebody who's a great father and a really good husband. And that's just stuff that looking back on it now, having been out of it for a little while, that I probably miss more. Like most people would think, well, you just, don't you just miss, competing and being in the game? It's like, yeah, of course. Like it's been ingrained in me since I was a little kid. But I think the impact that you have when you get a little bit older and you've done it for a little while, I think you realize that that's really kind of the purpose of it all. Like, yeah, you're trying to get guys better at baseball, but the foundation for all of that is the communication. It's holding them to a high standard, watching kids figure it out, helping them figure it out. That's what I always come back to and what I miss. When people ask me that, I think my answer is different now than it would have been, if I had gotten out of coaching when I was 25 or 26, I think my answer would have been very, very different.
And I like when you say figure it out. So that's kind of been that's evolved into an acronym that we have on all of our practice shirts. We have FIO on all of our shirts. And we so often will say to a player, listen, go figure it out, right? Coach, can I coach, like all those little things where I'm like, well, I can tell you, I can show you. And I think the best way for me to help you is that you need to go figure it out. But they need to hear that. And I think today's young players more than ever, there might be some degree of, hand holding a little bit more so than maybe my generation growing up, and that's just the way of the world. But there's a price to be paid for that. So we are more and more trying to encourage our guys to do more things independently, teaching them how to advocate for themselves better, but getting them ultimately to figure it out. And that even could certainly be on the baseball field. It's like, hey, listen, these are the things that we want to do. Okay. These are the things that I'm seeing from you, but you need to figure it out. Look around and figure it out and get them to kind of, ultimately reflect and make changes. So it is kind of nice. It's refreshing hearing that. I'm not the only one who says figure it out.
No, and for some guys, it takes them failing to a point where they have no other choice. And for some guys, it's just the quick realization of, oh, if I want to be good, I got to do some stuff different. They see another guy on the roster who is, the guy's going to go play pro ball, or in your case, maybe it's pro ball, maybe it's that kid's going to go and get a Division I scholarship, and he does things different than me.
Yep.
There's a different intensity at which he practices. There's a different posture and just kind of energy when he shows up to the field every day, and he's in the weight room 5 days a week, and he's also going to class. And sometimes guys figure that out really quickly, and they go, oh, okay, if I want to keep up, I better start doing some of this stuff, and they latch on to somebody that does it right. And that's one of the things that we try to tell our guys when they end up moving on to go and play in college is, hey, when you get there, go latch on. If you're a right-handed pitcher, go latch on to the best right-hand pitcher on the staff and just do what he does, because he's probably good for a reason. And it's probably not just because he throws the ball hard or he's got a really good breaking ball. He's probably really good at preparation. He's probably really good at taking care of his body. He probably does the little things right. He's always on time for practice. He's wearing the right uniform. He's, and you start to figure that out. And then there's other guys who they have to, for lack of a better term, kind of hit rock bottom and go, okay, this isn't working. Tell me what I need to do. Both of those paths are great as long as you get the end result of a kid going, okay, now I know what I need to do, and they start to put the action behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, definitely. We have all the above, and I think that we as we go through our mid-year meetings and have certainly regular conversations throughout the year when needed. And I think that's kind of one of the things I do enjoy about our staff is it's pretty small. It's myself and two assistants. And I think the players will support that we just have ongoing conversations all the time. And it could be about it. A lot of times it isn't about baseball. It's about a lot of stuff, or and I know that's a goal of mine this year, is to just have more positive interactions or more neutral interactions, and try to minimize the negative interactions with guys. So it doesn't mean just giving them crap about something. It's, more stuff, and asking about it, whether it's, even if it's just class, like, how's things going, you getting around okay, you figuring things out, and kind of just start, that ongoing conversation. But ultimately, some of them they need to bottom out, and you see it coming. I had a couple at the mid-year that you saw it coming, and they're better for it, right? And I think that they know they can. We'll help them, but ultimately they have to figure it out.
If you're the parent of a high school baseball player with college aspirations, you already know the recruiting process can feel overwhelming. Endless showcases, nonstop emails, and big promises with very little clarity. That's why we recommend Diamond College Showcase Camps, the nation's premier academic baseball showcase. At Diamond College Showcases, every college coach in attendance is there with a purpose: to coach, instruct, evaluate, and recruit. Every player is seen, every player is engaged, and every family leaves with a clear understanding of where they truly stand. This is not a mass camp. College coaches run the drills, evaluate every athlete, and provide honest professional feedback that you can trust. Diamond College Showcase Camps are built for serious student athletes who value both baseball and academics. If you're looking for transparency, clarity, and a recruiting experience that respects your time and your player's future, Diamond College Showcase is the place to be. To learn more, visit diamondcollegeshowcase.com.
The kids who go through that and they bounce back from it, the long-term impact of that goes so far beyond just the baseball.
Sure.
And we always used to talk about this on the podcast, but the first 6 months for a kid, whether they're going to junior college, Division III, or they're going to play in the ACC, that first 6 months, there is going to be a moment where they really doubt, am I good enough? They're going to have a really bad day on the field, or they're going to oversleep a practice. They're going to do something, and it's going to have an impact. And the kids who can own their mistakes, own the moment, and be accountable for their actions and move forward, and whether it's proactive to go and start doing more work on the field, whether it's making sure you're setting an alarm so you're getting to class, like little things, the kids who bounce back from it, they're so much better in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
Because they learn from that failure and they have an opportunity to build on that. And it's something that becomes ingrained in them that long-term just has huge impacts, I think.
Yeah. And one of the beauties of certainly JUCO baseball is, it isn't, and I am very happy about this. I don't have the pressure of what NCAA coaches have to go through, and I would say all three levels of NCAA coaches at some point in time, right? They have to win, and just to kind of continue positively recruiting. I think in the junior college world, you want to be successful, but like I don't feel the pressure that I have to go to a College World Series year. I don't even look at it that way. Those things don't even come to mind, and so ultimately, guys can come into the program, and we have some fluff space for guys to fail, especially with our fall being what it is. That's a great time for our instruction and getting guys to change, and right, with very different rules in the NCAA. So it's a great place to come on in and grow, but that growth means, right, and it's kind of a tough thing to talk about with parents and recruits, but it's a good place to come in and fail. and go bad and start to realize, oh, they're actually pretty good. But the other piece that goes with that is and I think it's more of a challenge than ever, is getting young players to trust the instruction. We have a lot of conversations about trust the instruction. Guys, that learning curve is only going to get steeper and steeper when you resist the instruction. And whether it's not trusting our information, or it's just that they're out of their comfort zone, one of the two. So a challenge, but ultimately it happens. And it's usually when they hit rock bottom, and then they're like, oh yeah, now I know what you're talking about, coach. Oh yeah, okay. Well, let's get busy.
I think it's so interesting. Like especially in today's game where you're getting kids, and this is at all levels. This isn't just specific to junior college, where all these kids have had hitting coaches, infield coaches, pitching coaches their entire lives. And then they show up, and as college coaches, we're going to challenge you to get better because your current state is probably not good enough to get college hitters out to be successful against good college pitching. And there's going to be people who rebel against that. And it's like, well, my pitching coach or my hitting coach, it's like, yeah, man, he doesn't work here. He doesn't coach in college. And there's a place for it in this game, but I feel like there's been like this monster leap where you have kids who want to go back to their hitting coaches and change things and do things. Well, like the people who are ultimately in charge of putting you in the lineup are telling you what it is that you need to do. If you're going to fight it, the likelihood of you being in the lineup or even on the team at the end of the year is pretty slim. And I feel like it's happened more and more over the last couple of years. And I caution people against it just because, like, you know, I've had parents tell me like, wow, we don't know about that school because we've heard some things. And inevitably you do some digging and there's someone on the team who, you know, they know. But you're hearing one side of the story. You're not hearing the other side of like, yeah, they refused to make adjustments. They didn't have a hit the entire fall. So how can I put him on the field? And then you're hearing like, oh, they don't know what they're doing. They don't like him. They only play older kids. Like, or maybe you finally faced adversity for the first time in your life and you folded instead of, hey, what do I have to do in order to get better to get on the field? And trust the coaching and do the things they're asking you to do so that you can start to make jumps to be a college baseball player. There's not a lot of, to your point earlier, but there's not a lot of 18-year-olds that can handle the ACC. There's not a lot of 18-year-olds that can handle college baseball right away. Like, are there some out there? Absolutely there are. But by and large, there's not a lot of kids walking straight out of high school that are legitimately ready to go play college baseball and have a lot of success. They're going to be out there, yes. Like, so people are going to fact check and be like, that's not true. Like, yes, there are freshmen who go out there and are really good. But the overwhelming majority aren't ready. And it could be a number of things. It could be your swing. It could be your pitch. It could be your pitch mix. It could be you're a 2-pitch guy and, you know, you can only throw one time through the order because you're figured out after that. You know, it could be the mental aspect of it. It could be emotional. It could be the physical. Right? Like you could be a little undersized and you can't take it, but you know, you have some tools that are going to play up as you get more physical. And, you know, but there's a whole plethora of things. You know, I just think that it's, you know, to your guys' point, like the hitting rock bottom and trusting the coaching and doing those things, like you have to understand when you go to a program, you're going to be coached by the coaches that are there. So like, it's weird to me that, you know, you see that people want to rebel against it and go elsewhere. It's like, well, then why did you go there in the first place? If you don't think that they're good enough to coach you to get better, then why are you there? Like, stop paying money to the guy who doesn't even coach you anymore. He's not writing the lineup. He's not going to get you in there. Like it's wild to me. But like my point in all of this is like when you go to the place, trust the coaching that you're getting because by and large you're getting good coaching. They know what the level is. They know what it takes to succeed there. You're going to have to do a little bit more than what you're currently doing, right? Andy says this all the time. Like high school guys right now, for the most part, you're probably doing less than the bare minimum that's going to be asked of you when you get to college. And I think that's hard for some people to wrap their head around. Like less than bare minimum, I hit 4 times a week. Like, yeah, man, you're going to be hitting 6 times a week. Probably 7. You're going to be in the weight room 4 to 5 times a week. You're going to be conditioning. You're going to be practicing. Like the hitting is not just hitting in the cage. Like you're going to be practicing 6 days a week. It's a lot. And if you're not ready for it, you're going to figure it out real quick. Like, oh, okay, this is what they were talking about. This is a little bit more than I kind of anticipated this to be.
Yeah, I mean, as I work with the hitters, and that's kind of I think one of my areas that I enjoy most. So we have a lot of process, like all coaches, you know, and and oftentimes in September and October, and you can see you're talking to the group, and they're kind of staring at you. And I'm like, guys, you got to understand something, okay? And no disrespect to those who are in the business working hard and working in, say, the industry with just hitters or pitchers, but ultimately, guys, the at the end of the day, the wins and losses will go next to my name. So do you think I'm going to give you instruction so I can lose? Right? We want to teach you how to play so that you win games. I mean, right? They are keeping score, and we want to do things on the offensive side and on the defensive side and on the pitching side so that we win. So the instruction is about, at the end of the day, winning games. And there are plenty of pitching and hitting guys that have really never experienced, like that. You got to get your guys to play. You got to get them to win, and they don't. So their perspective is so different than ours, and I mean I think that's just a fact. And I think when I express that to players, they're kind of still looking at me like, yeah, but I'm like, guys, you got to understand something. You're writing them checks. And quite frankly, as a scholarship program, we're writing checks to you. So we're giving you instructions so that we can be better and you can be productive and win baseball games. And guess what? That's what college coaches want. Can you help them win?
Yeah, I think it's an age-old, I don't want to say it's an age-old issue. I feel like it's a newer one. But at the same time, like, there is a place for it. I certainly believe that. And like, people work really hard at it, and there's a lot of people out there that are really good at it.
Yep.
But there is a distinct difference, at least in my mind, from a coaching standpoint of like, I've recruited these guys, and I have to figure out a way to get all of like these 15 arms to somehow work as a staff so that we can win games.
Yep.
And these 16 hitters to be able to defend, to be able to make plays, to be able to score runs, to be able to run the bases, to be able to do all these things so that we can be successful and win baseball games. Yep. It's not just sharpening a skill that you have that may or may not pay off at some point in time, but like, these are the things that you have to do in order to be successful. And Andy hits it on the head all the time. When you talk about a college offense, like, you're a function of an offense. Like, there's a role that you are going to play within the offense. Where when you get to college, most guys who are playing in college were probably hit top end of the lineup on their high school team. And you get to college, like, you were a 4-hole guy, like, you might be the 8-hole guy. Your role in that offense is wildly different as the 8-hole guy versus the 4-hole guy. We're not paying you to drive in runs and try to hit doubles. I'm paying you to get on base and move some base runners around so that it sets the table for when we flip the lineup over, the other guys to come in here and knock those guys in. And it's a mindset change. It's a whole, there's a lot more that goes into it than just like, okay, where's our swing path and where are we catching this ball? And yay, we caught a barrel and that's great. Your exit velo is amazing. Awesome. But if you can't do it in the game, it's all for naught. So I think that it's such a different, what's the word I'm looking for, Andrew? Help me here.
I think there's like the skill portion of it, right? There's the instruction of a swing and trying to help a guy get better functionally, right?
Yeah.
But when you get to college, you're coaching an offense and you have to know how to play offense. It's not just running out the 9 best hitters.
Sure.
Like, because you're also taking into account, well, I need a shortstop who can really play defense. So that guy might not need to be a really good hitter. He might need to be somebody who does certain things that I really value. Can he run? Can he bunt? Does he get the ball and play a bunch? And I think that that's the biggest transition for high school kids, is that when you're in high school, it's just you put your best hitters 1 through 5, and hopefully your best couple of hitters get a bunch of hits, and you end up winning some games. And you don't have the same mentality that you do at the college level when you're talking about grinding out at bats, when you're talking about getting into a bullpen and how does that impact a weekend. Being able to get to middle relief on a Friday might win you a Sunday. And those things I think are can be lost on some coaches who are very niche in what they do. Like a swing. I call them, they're swing coaches in my mind. I consider myself an offensive coach, a hitting coach. But when I was in college, I wasn't doing a ton of swing overhauls, right? We made adjustments with guys. We tried to make sure they were in really good positions to hit. And like there's a component of that. But my job was to make sure that our guys were ready when they stepped in the batter's box. Did they understand what pitch mixes they were facing? Did they understand it situationally? Do they have an approach? Like, are we making those kind of adjustments? Are we setting themselves up to play offense? And I think there's a pretty, in my mind, there's a pretty clear line when it comes to that. And I think there's a place for the swing coaches, because I do think if you have a really efficient swing and it's really good, it's going to give you a chance to be a better hitter. But there's the play offense and win games side of things, which comes with base running, which comes with dirt ball reads, it's first to thirds. There's just so much more when you get to college that becomes very, very impactful. You can't just, rarely you're just going to outslug guys, especially when you start getting into like conference play and, some of those early weekends when you got some Northeast teams going down to play like Texas A&M or something. Like, yeah, it might just be their guys are better than your guys, but when you get in conference, the margins are they're so thin, and it comes down to being able to play offense, not necessarily just hit.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's funny because that was as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking of some of the stuff. We're doing a lot of conditioning right now. I mean, today was practice 5, and as we break off, and I'm working with the hitters, and just a lot of tee work. But we go through a very structured dry swing progression, and then like I'll bring everybody back together, and just as I'm watching their tee swings, and and I'm like, guys, this is. We want to make this a daily goal, and this isn't new because they've been hearing it since September. But every day that we need to find rhythm, fluidity, and balance. I mean, they probably get tired of hearing me say it. Rhythm, fluidity, balance, and they're like, well, I'm like, well, you certainly can't be a wax statue, okay? So we need that rhythm and that fluidity, and that rhythm is going to be part of your timer, which is, in my opinion, your hand timer, your hand load is so crucial. We talk about boxers and MMA fighters. They have hand load, they have fluidity. And the balance piece where, like when you take a swing, I want to see a 1 second hold. I want to see that you can have balance, because if you don't have balance at the finish, you didn't have balance at the start. And so ultimately, guys, that rhythm, fluidity, and balance, what that is, that's barrel accuracy. Because if we don't have those three, that you're just going to get in the box, regardless of all the other things, you're going to just help pitchers and you're going to get out. Right. So as we're grinding through dry swings and as we're grinding through tee swings and we're embarking upon, breaking out all the machines and going live, we need to be perfect with this. The ball's on a tee. You know what I mean? And so that's like one, but as I'm listening to this, I'm like, yeah, we're doing that and we have to do that. But that's like 1/100th of our offense. And then we go into base running, and like today's big, again, we spend a lot of time with just 2 out leads from second base. But again, it's the layers and layers and layers of our offense. And it's all good fundamental stuff, but man, it is right. So the hitting piece, it's just a fraction of what really has to happen to score runs, right?
I mean, you talk about the 2 out lead from second base. It doesn't mean anything until it means something. You get into the bottom of the 8th, and you got a guy on second base, and a guy hits that, hard line drive through the 5 hole. If his secondary is really good, he can score.
Yep.
If he has a bad rep on that particular pitch, it could be the difference between out and safe.
Yep.
Same thing at first base with good secondaries. And can you go first to third? Can you get to third with 1 out? Could be the difference. Well, a ground ball scores a run versus having, and those things, they ultimately show up over the course of a season. And when you are starting to play competition that is comparable to your talent level in your dugout, the margins are thin. And that dirt ball read, getting the ball in play with 2 strikes to extend an inning because you hit a hard ground ball to shortstop and he pulls a guy off the bag, you end up getting into first base, that extends an inning. Like, it doesn't seem like much in the moment, but when you zoom out and you're able to look at it across the course of a season, you start to be able to pinpoint like, oh, this is why this stuff matters. Because so many times it doesn't. But then when it does, it shows up and it is so glaringly obvious. So like all those reps we had on taking 2-out leads at second base, well, that won us 2 series this year because our guys are really good at it.
Absolutely. I mean, we were, I think the guys, we're taking our, for us, our 2-out lead will be like let's kind of face off on the second baseman, see where he's at, check the outfield. They're probably deep with 2 outs, but let's drop. I like to have our guys drop back deep. So if a shortstop wants to check him, he's way out of position. But then you're deep so that you can cut third base without making a question mark in a sense. You know what I mean? Kind of avoiding that waste of movement and being very efficient and getting, again, we rep it out a ton, but and I think an 18-year-old out of high school probably scored a ton from second base and never was challenged. But I'm like, well, guys, at the college level, trust me, everything's faster, the arms are better. The ball's going to get there. The catcher's going to hold on to it, and he's going to tag, and you're going to be called out. And it might not matter, but more times than not, it will. And that inefficient use of your secondary and that bad geometry, could make a difference. So I mean, and again, to your point earlier, this is just one fraction of our offense, but you got to rep it out and you got to explain it and expect that it gets done. And it almost really won't matter till it doesn't get done. Somebody inevitably will have to get thrown out, and it was probably a bad read and a bad line. Right?
I think what we're talking about, I think this is college baseball. Like, this is prevalent. This isn't just a Monroe thing. Like, this is something that gets preached. And I think people would be shocked when they showed up to a college practice, whether it was an SEC school or a really good junior college. I think they would be shocked at what happens. It's not just batting practice and bullpens.
Yep.
It's not just ground balls and taking IO. Like, you spend time on this stuff because the guys are there because they can hit or they can run or they can play defense. They have skills that are required to play at the level that they're at. Well, now we need to teach you how to play games so that we can win games. And, that shortstop usually doesn't need 5 extra ground balls during practice, but we might need to work on some positioning stuff to make sure that we got cuts and relays right, that the ball is going to be delivered to the right spot. And we're working on some of the gameplay stuff. And I think that people would be shocked if they went to a college practice. I think the pace would throw them off in terms of how quickly you move through drills, how organized it is, scheduled down to the minute usually, the intensity at which it's happened, and then the intentionality behind what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you get into like a batting practice rotation, there's base running going on. There's fungos getting hit. There's live reads by the outfielders. There's a bunt station. There's more than just guys hitting baseballs. The rounds are there for a purpose. The practice is it's different. It's different than anybody's going to experience. And I think you're hitting at some of the details that they ultimately help you win games. And it's a transition for a lot of kids when you get in and you go, oh, wait, we never did this before. You get Division I scholarship guys show up and they've never been taught how to take a lead from first base without turning their back on the pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think the base running, which I probably one of my favorite things to work on with the guys and instruct. And I think, just being in the game for a long time, right? You see all the stuff where it can go bad. And so these are the reasons why we do all these fundamentally sound things on the bases, which, you guys know coming out of high school, right? Like your freshmen, think of when they don't know the first thing about the whole base running and all. They think being a good base runner is being fast. And like, well, no, actually some of your best base runners are slow. They understand their speed. They understand everything that's going on around them, and they understand the situation, and they make decisions. They kind of predetermine, if this happens, I'm going to do this. If this happens, they think it through quickly. Granted, they're experienced, but the base running piece is so crucial to any team's success. But it's such a steep learning curve at our level. I mean, and really, even though you can instruct and rep it out and goes through everything with inter squads. It's just unfortunately it's tough because you got to live it. I mean, you got to get on. You got to get on base once in a while, and then you got to live it. And but a challenge. But right, that's something that is a big piece of our in every college team's instruction. Right, how in pro ball that's a big piece of instruction.
Yeah, I think the base running piece is one of the biggest ones. Not to beat this dead horse, Andy, because we've talked about it on this before. But your freshmen show up and it's you take. I mean, I would take probably 30 to 45 minutes going around the field, talking about what we do just generally at home. Like, what do we do on line drives when we hit them? What do we do on ground balls that get through? What do we do on, and then the first, and then what's our lead there? What's the first thing you have to do? Take my lead. No, that's not the first thing you do. What do you need to do? Like, and it's not a knock on high school coaches or like, it's just, there's too much to go into it, and it matters in college. Like, you know, what about outfield positioning? And it's, I don't know what that means. Like, you need to know where your outfielders are first. We got to get signs. We got to then take it. And like, all of this happens in a span of like 16 seconds. So at some point, like, the game speeds up so quick of like, I need to know where everyone is, get the sign, know what we're doing offensively, and take my lead. And then get in my secondary. Maybe I'm stealing. Maybe it's a delay. Maybe we're bunting. I don't know. You know, and then same thing at second, same thing at third. And like, we'd go around. And, you know, I've said this before, like, one of the biggest things, and I'm sure you see it, freshman catchers have zero clue how to run bases because they, like, the high school rule, especially in summer ball, they have the speed up rule. Like, the catcher gets on and then is immediately out of the games to put his stuff on and someone else runs. So they come in, like, they would take a 3-foot lead. Like, they take 1-2 steps and they're like, all right, this is my primary. I'm like, you're going to fall and your thigh is going to hit first base. Like, that's not a lead. Like, what do you mean that's your lead? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, okay. And, you know, you can teach it, but it's like, it's such a big part of the game. And I think that it's like, when you're an average player like I was, you got better at it because it was something that you could hang your hat on of being in the game for. Like, okay, when I get on base, I know how to run the bases and I'm not going to run us into a nightmare. And the coaches can trust that I'm not going to do that. And I can go first to third and I can score from second. Like, I wasn't the fastest guy. I was an average gets Division I baseball player. But I took pride in being able to do it because that was one of the things I could do really well. And like, hey, if I'm going to be good at it, and like, if we're going to do this, I might as well be good at it. And this might be a reason why I can play. And, you know, I think like people don't realize like you might not be in the lineup because it's like, I can't trust him on the base paths. He doesn't know the signs. He doesn't know how to run. Like, we never go first to third. He can't score from second. Like, what are we going to do? And that could be a deterrent for you to not be in the lineup. So it's things like that, you know, it's way more for what we're driving at with all of this. It's way more than just being able to hit, pitch, and defend. There's a lot more that goes into this game they got to be good at.
Absolutely. Yep.
Sorry, Andy, I cut you off.
No, I was gonna ask because we talk about this, and I think we're strong proponents of that. Junior college is a great option for a lot of guys, and I think that we have our stance on why it's a really good option for guys. But I'd love to hear from you. Like, you're a product of it as a player, and obviously you coach it now. Why is junior college a really good option for a lot of guys?
Well, I think there's a couple things that stick out to me right away. It is a place where you might not, at least at Monroe, I'm not going to have 50 guys on the roster. I'm probably not going to have 40 guys on the roster. That I might have 38 in the fall, and then our spring roster will be 27. So it's a place where you're going to, there's already the built-in pressure of, you know, of putting up numbers so you can get to the next place or getting in the lineup, or, you know what I mean? But ultimately, you're going to have the opportunity to get reps. You're going to have the opportunity to grow in an environment that doesn't have to battle with the portal and NIL and all the challenges that are going on in the NCAA right now. I mean, and I think until the dust settles, and that may not be for a while. I mean, we still really don't even know what's going to happen with the court case. Is the NCAA going to allow JUCO players 3 years of eligibility, 4 years eligibility? Or are they going to stay to 2? So there's a lot going on with that. But if you're not sure, it's a great place to get a ton of instruction and exceptional educational experience, and you'll still have choices. If you're not getting the things that you think you need to come out of high school, which is probably happening more than ever now because of the portal, right? More and more schools are just going to go, I'm just going to recruit out of the portal. And so, as 4-year rosters get older, the junior colleges are right. We'd love to have you. But you are going to get exceptional instruction and have a great experience. And, right? Isn't that what we want? We want to have a great experience where it's competitive, it's a challenge, and it prepares you for the next place. And I think more than ever, junior college should be strongly considered by even, and I think it is, but it's still, at least in our area, JUCOs are not on the top of many of their lists. It's just they want to head off and get the 4-year experience, and so hopefully that'll change. Hopefully more so than ever. I don't know. That's it makes more sense than ever now, especially with the NCAA going through the changes that they're going through. So.
You hit on the reps, right? Like from a developmental standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And you also mentioned earlier a little bit about the fall. Talk about the differences. I'll start it. There's restrictions for Division I, Division II, and Division III in terms of the time that they can spend. It's very strict with the number of hours and the number of days that you're able to work out in the fall.
Yep.
Junior college is a little bit different.
Yep. So our fall, for example, we'll start, let's say, September 1st. We had 35 full-blown formal practices. These are, your traditional 4-hour practice, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We'll play double headers on Saturday or Sunday. Between September, we'll go right almost till the end of October, roughly. And again, the weather, at least in our part of the country, is the best in September through October. So you're getting just significant amount of time outside on the baseball field. And we're still in the weight room 4 days a week, and we're still having study hall 2 times a week. But we're also, our dress rehearsals, which I always struggle with that with the NCAA. And I know it's different from Division I, Division II, Division III, but ultimately it's just like, we'll play 12 games, and generally we'll play the NCAA schools, the local NCAA schools, and play 2 9s, and we'll play one of the JUCOs that's close by, and so we'll have really good dress rehearsals and see what guys can do when we're playing somebody with a different jersey, and it's a good experience, and it really helps us start to build our team chemistry, and guys have a safe place to fail. Right? They're fall games. It's a good place to fail. They mean something. You're still trying to impress and you're competing, but but come Tuesday when I roll into practice and we have this is what I saw, right? And it's just a great opportunity to fail and then instruct and grow. I don't know if NCAA can match that.
No, it's different. And they put the clamps on you at Division III, and I think that Keith has his thoughts on this, but the idea of disconnecting players from the coaches, and they're usually the reason they're at school, was always something that seemed a little bit odd to me when you talk about like student athlete experience. And from a pure baseball standpoint, those reps, it's the only thing that really moves the needle from a development standpoint. Playing those games, being able to practice the way that you guys practice. And, if guys have the goal of being a Division I player at some point in their career or being a scholarship player at the Division II level, and it doesn't happen for them right out of high school, and you're willing to go and work and you're committed to try and get better, I just think the JUCO thing gets overlooked sometimes. Partially because I don't think people understand everything that you just said about the development of it and, what it offers from a baseball perspective.
Yeah. If all of our instruction is completed in the fall, everything. And it's an ongoing cycle that repeats itself many, many times. But the on-field, when we're doing first and thirds and all of our bunt defenses and our double cuts, that's the stuff that's got to be done on a baseball field. And you do it in isolation and it helps. But when it shows up on a weekend doubleheader, when we're playing, University of Rochester or Hobart, that's all of a sudden like, okay, that looked pretty good, but this is what we got to clean up. And then they come back when we discuss what we saw on Tuesday, it mattered. Now it means something to them. It isn't just this instruction in isolation, which, in the Northeast, we're certainly going to get that in January and February, right? It's kind of pretend baseball in January, February. But that's why our fall is so crucial, and we're so fortunate to have the flexibility that we have. And not to mention November, December, we can still get 8 hours a week. And that's when we can kind of, tear down some skills a little bit and rebuild them through that November, December. That's contact with coach. It's really not that much different than September, October. It's just we're at 8 hours. We're digging through film and we're doing stuff more inside the field house, which is a little bit more intimate, which is good. It's a nicer teaching environment. It's easier in that regard. But we also had the fall to talk about, hey, do you remember this? Do you remember that? And they know, they're like, yeah, okay. They didn't have much success in the fall. They're very coachable now. Right. So we are blessed to have that. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's huge. The one thing, and I haven't gone on a rant about the Division III NCAA in a while, but the one thing that always boggled my mind was the lack of contact with coaches after your 16 days in the fall or up. And then they've since added, you can use your days how you want coming out of COVID, but you still, there are no individuals. There are no, even if it was 6 hours a week or 4 hours a week, once you get through your fall season, there's no instruct or being able to kind of talk with your coaches. You can do academic meetings and such, but, from a check-in standpoint, your older guys, at a four-year school, you're not really worried about them academically unless they've been at risk their entire career. But at a place like RPI, most of my juniors and seniors were knocking down 3.5s and above. Like, what am I going to talk to them about academics? And I just think that to fall under the guise of just, school is too tough, they've kind of got it figured out. And if you're at a four-year school, you're generally deeper into your major at that point in time. So you're taking classes that you really enjoy and actually want to go to. You're probably doing better. They're there to play baseball. Why not give the coaches a couple of hours a week to be able to have that contact? And the flip side of it, not just from a coaching baseball standpoint, but to check in on your players and make sure that everything is going okay. And to continually be able to, have your messaging and the things it is that you want to, tell them and teach them and get them to be able to do, because you get through. There were times at RPI, and there's a lot of other things at play with what the school did, but you couldn't really put anything in the fall because, what are you going to do? Put in bunt Ds at September 4th and then hope that everyone, not do them for 4 months and then come back at the end of January and be like, all right, let's run our bunties here. Let's be crisp and really good on them, because you're not that you're going to forget, but it's not going to be as sharp. It's not going to be, you're going to have to reteach it to the freshmen. So we would punt on it to the beginning of the spring, because it's like, well, let's just go play. Let's see where we're at from a play standpoint. Let's get these guys at bats. Let's see what we have to do on the big stuff. And then the minutia that we got to get into, that's where we'll really break down in January and February before we play, because we would be missing a whole class of guys with them doing a thing for the school. And, it just got to be a lot where it was like, okay, are we just this doesn't really make sense to I don't want to say waste time on, but spend time on when we're just going to have to reintroduce all of this in 4 months. But I think the junior college offers so much more than I think a lot of people even think. And I think the other side of it too is that a lot of people look at junior college as kind of Division III, where I had to fight this sometimes. It's like, well, if I don't get what I want from a Division 1 or 2 standpoint, I'll just go play Division 3 baseball. Like, I don't think you realize how good Division 3 baseball is, and I don't think you realize how good junior college baseball is. Like, there's, and Andy and I talk about this a lot. Like, go look at rosters all over the country. They're littered with junior college players. It's not because, they couldn't find anyone else. It's because they can look at a junior college kid who had 1 or 2 years of college baseball experience and be able to project a little bit more. And they've been through the fire. They played early on. Like, yeah, I can look at a guy and say, hey, he hit 275 as a freshman, then he hit 350 as a sophomore. Like, this is a guy who's on an upward trajectory, who's been through it, and he has 600 college at-bats. I'll take that over, and maybe it is a back end of the roster guy, or maybe it's a guy that you're looking at like, we can get this guy and he can play right away, versus we can take this freshman, and sometimes they will, but we're going to have to develop him into that player over the course of the next year or two. And you're going to get a lot of experience playing at a junior college, and you're going to get a lot of at bats. And I think the other thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Coach, like, there is, like, to your point, there's 12 fall games. Like, you can get a lot of experience in those fall games, and you inter squad a lot, and you have a pretty unique setup at SICK. They have an indoor field house where you can go live and do all these things. Like, you can get a lot of at bats in inter squads where you're getting college at bats. They might not show up later on, but like that's going to make you better too. And it's being able to, at some point, you have to be able to play in order to get better at this game. And I think junior college offers a lot of unique opportunities for kids. And I think a lot of people kind of view it through the lens of like, well, it's 13th grade. Like, no, it's not. And I do think, and I would like you to speak to this, because I know that you do you're obviously you're a teacher, for your stickler for the academics, but Monroe is actually a really good junior college as well. Like, it's not just show up and we're going to give you an A and you get a diploma. Like, you actually have to go to class and get really good grades. And they have a lot of programs that a lot of really high-end academic institutions take their credits as well. So it's not just kind of I don't want to say a throwaway degree, but it bucks the trend of what most people would think about from a junior college too.
Well, so in the 12 years that have gone by, so well over 100 transfers onto 4-year programs, and we've certainly sent guys off to Ivy League schools, higher end academic institutions. Whether it be University of Rochester. I got a guy at Butler right now. All said and done, we've got a couple attorneys. I know we're on our 4th dentist. And these are things I am very proud and will not hesitate to tell parents. I love talking about my 4 dentists and my 2 or 3 attorneys, and and on top of just all the other guys who became excellent students and moved on and have careers outside of athletics, and we're right. That's what we want. So yes, Monroe, I think nationally has a great reputation for their academic standards. I mean, it's a SUNY curriculum, right? You can go through Monroe, and if you decide to stay in New York State and go to a SUNY 4-year, it rolls easily. And I can honestly say this: when I went to Monroe after being at the University of Maryland, I had some of the finest teachers at Monroe Community College, hands down. You could sense that there wasn't 200 kids in a classroom, right? Which, and certainly I ran into at Maryland, right? You got 40,000 students, you go to Psych 101 and you're just a number, right?
Yeah.
That's not happening at Monroe. I mean, your class sizes are smaller, but I think your professors take on a role of kind of a more of a full wraparound approach where they care about you. And not saying that wasn't happening at bigger institutions, but they've got bigger fish to fry. They got 100 students in their class versus 20. And I can honestly say that the guys who move on to 4-year institutions, they do well. And like our guy at Butler or our guy at University of Rochester, they were good. They were good students anyways, and they were more than prepared to do well at those, incredible academic institutions. So very proud of that. Just as much as we're proud of what we do on the baseball field.
You mentioned the Ivy Leagues and having guys go to schools like University of Rochester, I think that sometimes people think, well, if you go to junior college, that path is off limits. And I think that that's a misnomer as well, that, you go and do really well in high school, and then you go and put together a really strong transcript at a junior college school. That doesn't prevent you from going to really good academic institutions. And obviously, Monroe's a little bit unique with some of the tie-ins they have to some of the schools in the state of New York. But I think that's a common misconception too, that if you go to junior college, that you're shorting yourself from an academic perspective. And I think the reality is that if you go there and you excel and you take a legitimate course load, then none of those doors actually close for you.
No doubt. And it's a regular conversation, usually when we're in study hall and guys know the routine. It's, trying to get them to understand that what you do in the classroom is probably going to open more doors than what you're doing on the baseball field. And if you can do it simultaneously, it's a win-win. And so I think that's the culture we breed in the baseball program, is that the expectation is that you take care of business in the classroom. The guys will tell you 100% attendance, 100% assignment completion, hats off in the classroom, phones off, sit in the middle front, and break out a pencil. And I think that they get that. That's the expectation. And ultimately, I think that'll carry them a long way. But right, the doors are going to open. Right, if you're 3.0 or better, there's a good chance you might get academic money, and it also opens the doors for those academic packages for D3 schools. And I agree what Keith was saying. Right, the competition level of Division III baseball is outstanding, and I try to kind of explain this to our guys. Guys, listen, you want to be open to play wherever. You want to go where somebody loves you. And if it's a D3 program, then you should be blessed that they want you, because D3 baseball is better than it's ever been. But the books and the academic expectations are high. And certainly we want that from our guys.
I think the other good side of it too, not only from a recruit standpoint, from a parent standpoint, but back to the teaching aspect of the kids, like you also want your kids to be able to go to a program and not be a pain in the butt.
Yep.
In the classroom, because that it's the same thing of, it's similar of like, it's a reflection of you and your program, which I know you take seriously. Like, I don't want one of you guys leaving here, going to a school, and then you fail out of school in the fall, because then they're never going to want to take a guy from Monroe again.
Yep.
And, and on the flip side, you go in there and you do everything it is that you need to do academically, and you're not a headache. Like, the coaches are going to love that. Like, yeah, I'll take a guy from Monroe, from a junior college, that's going to do this all the time, because I don't have to worry about him. I don't have to worry about him going to class. I don't have to worry about him getting good grades. All the off the field stuff is taken care of, and we can focus on baseball when he gets here.
Yep.
And that it means a lot more to coaches in college baseball, regardless of level, when you don't have to babysit kids off the field.
Yep.
When you can, and generally it starts happening around sophomore year, but like when you don't have to babysit them in the classroom, making sure that they're going to class, they're doing their assignments, they're getting good grades, then it becomes like, okay, they've have this figured out. Now that's when you really start to see strides from a baseball standpoint of like, okay, they got the feet under them academically. And in a place like RPI or U of R or RIT or, the league that I coached in, like Clarkson and Vassar and, those schools of the world, like, it's tough academically. And guys are going to struggle a little bit their freshman year. And it does, rightfully so, it does take away some of the baseball stuff, because it's like, we need to get your feet under you academically to make sure that you're going to be okay before we really start making strides in other aspects of what you have going on here. And once they do, you start seeing, pretty big strides on what they can handle, because now they kind of have it, again, to earlier's conversation, figured out, for lack of a better term, of like, okay, I know what I have to do from a class standpoint. I know what I have to do from a work standpoint. Now, when I go to baseball, I can be 100% all in on baseball and not sitting there like, I got an F in thermals and fluids and I'm failing this course and I have all this work in physics that I have no idea what the formula is to even plug in to get the grade. So it bodes well in the long run. And I was partial to it just because when I was at RPI, Hudson Valley, if you had a 3.0 in engineering, it was a free transfer into RPI. And we had JUCO guys coming out of Hudson Valley because, for whether or not they were ready coming out of high school or financially they couldn't, afford going to a school that cost $80,000 all in at the time, couldn't do it for 4, but we can do it for 2. And you're getting literally the same education that the kids at RPI are getting, just at a far cheaper price point, while also being able to play a lot more baseball and develop into a better player. And we had guys who came out of Hudson Valley who work at NASA now. And it was, I remember having a conversation with the one kid. He wanted to go. We got washed down at Randolph-Macon, Andy, to go play CJ and Ray, and it snowed there. And we were going to go down and play a doubleheader. And I was like, look, you're only going to throw 2 innings. So why don't you stay home? He was giving a presentation to NASA. He was doing like an internship with them at school. And he was like, I want to go. And I was like, you're not going. Like, you're not skipping an opportunity to present to NASA to throw 2 innings in a game in February. that doesn't, no, you're not going. And at the time he wasn't very happy, but at the same, like, he ended up getting a job, and that was way more meaningful at that point in time. Like, throwing 2 innings in early February isn't going to make or break your season. Like, he was good. He pitched a lot for us. Like, we'll extend you out live before we leave to make sure you're good. Like, you might throw 2 or have something that's going to look awesome on your resume for the rest of your life. Like, let's be realistic here. But I mean, that he was a JUCO kid. Yeah. Like, and I think people look at it like, oh, it's junior college, you're not going to do it. Like, no, man, that kid was a junior college kid, and he ended up with a degree and a master's out of RPI, and then ended up working at NASA, like, and was doing legit like 3D printing stuff. He explained to me one day, it was way too advanced for me in my baseball brain. But essentially, like, they were trying to 3D print the moon and how they could put rovers on the moon to be able to navigate the terrain, which is something far beyond anything that I would have comprehended at 21 years old. But nevertheless, him and one of our other players did it, and it ended up working out for him. But my long-winded point is that I think that you can't look down your nose at these opportunities and to think that, like, just going to these, going to a junior college isn't for you because it's not academic enough. Like, you're probably going to be challenged in ways you haven't been before, and it's going to be tough, and it's going to be tough anywhere. But it's going to be how you respond and where you ultimately end up with what you do with your degree.
Parents, if you've ever felt overwhelmed trying to navigate youth sports, there's a new resource designed just for you, Team Match. Team Match is an online platform built to streamline how families find the right youth sports teams by location, sport, and skill level, all in one place. It also provides a safe, organized space for kids to share their accomplishments, stats, and highlights, while giving coaches and teams a clear way to connect with athletes who are the right fit. Less searching, less stress, more confidence in the process. Youth sports just got simpler for families. This is Team Match. Check it out today at teammatchsports.com.
In the very least, just the financial aspect, you have to seriously weigh if you are a New York State resident. I mean, what you're paying. Certainly, what if you're a Monroe County resident and you might be able to live at home? I mean, the savings is, they pay more to their travel baseball program than they would to go to Monroe. So,
that's wild.
It's like, guys, you really got to rethink this. And even so, and as a scholarship program, I mean, we can, I generally try to lessen the blow for the international players, who are 99% of our Canadian players. And I try to help them the most. But ultimately, if we need to help some local guys, we do. But it's like, guys, when you hit the 4-year route, this is really going to be a big change, because now we're talking 40, 50, 60 on up. So do it now. Take advantage of it, right? And I think moms and dads listen, but there's still just that, this. I don't know if it's the student athlete or the parents or both, or just want to keep up with the neighborhood. I don't know, but we really want to go to. lost a recruit who were like, no, I really want to do the 4-year thing. I'm like, okay. I don't think it was the best thing for him, but that's what I've sensed was the variable in all this. And it's like, well, okay.
Yeah, and it's wild to me because I don't know, Andy, maybe I could be generalizing this, but I feel like there's a lot more of a stigma, and maybe it's because the Northeast has so many good colleges where, like, when I was coaching Alabama, they're turning guys away at junior colleges for baseball because they're like, we can't take 70 guys. Like, you got to go somewhere else. And and junior college baseball down there is very good. I mean, there's junior college baseball in New York is very good, but I feel like there's like a stigma in the Northeast because it's like, well, it's junior college. And I think part of it is because there's so many good colleges up here where it's like, well, why, you go to this 4-year school and do this stuff. But if you're going to go to a place and spend an astronomical amount of money and not really play and develop and eventually end up either back at a junior college or transferring, like, maybe the right route on the front end is to look at all options and be like, hey, maybe junior college is the best route for me. Save some money. Whether or not you want to live at home, that's, up to you, but you can save some money and you can develop and play a ton and legitimately develop your game to end up at a 4-year school. Or, and this is the thing in junior college, you can stay for a year, you can stay for 2, you can get drafted out of junior college. Like, if you're really good and you want to just go maybe you get drafted after your first or second year, you can go do it. It doesn't matter. You go to a 4-year school, you're locked in for 3. Unless they change the CBA in a couple of years, which seems like they might be doing. But
I'm glad you mentioned
neither here nor there.
That is, for moms and dads who are listening out there, the draft eligibility, you could go as a freshman, you could go as a sophomore, but if you're an NCAA qualifier, you can be a one and doneer. Come on in, do one and done. Or maybe you're that student who has a ton of AP credits. I know there's a recruit we're talking to. He's going to come in with 18 AP credits. I'm like, you could probably graduate and move on and just play 1 year, have 3 more years of eligibility left. It just makes so much sense for so many reasons, but you have choices and you not have choices coming out of high school, and you're kind of forcing yourself into this little 4-year box that might not be the best fit, and financially it's not a good fit. So I appreciate you bringing that up. That is all perfect.
I think the other thing about junior college that people sometimes forget is that, one, it's been lifeblood for college baseball for a long time. Like, I remember I think it was the year Ole Miss won the national championship. I think they had 16 junior college guys on that roster. And, it's been something that's gotten recruited for a long time. But in today's day and age with the portal, junior college is just an extension of that. Mm-hmm. It's guys that are 2 years stronger. They've got 120 innings under their belt. They're 20 and not 17. And coaches value the physical traits. It's an easier evaluation because the competition is better. And we just did a podcast the other day around how it's really hard to evaluate high school hitters sometimes because the level of competition is so variable. Well, junior college baseball, there's less variability in it. Yeah, of course there's going to be some, just like there is in Division I and Division III. Like, it's not the same up and down those levels, but it's an easier evaluation. And I think that most coaches these days are looking at junior college as an extension of the portal, where we all know that is playing a role in recruiting period and the development, the strength, the maturation. Like, you're getting a kid who's been through the ringer. You're getting a kid who's been forced to learn how to do the things that we've been talking about, and they're more prepared to go play Division I, II, or III baseball because they've done it already. Mm-hmm. And I think that factors in big time.
Yeah, being battle tested is crucial, and there's probably still going to be a learning curve coming out. They're still going to have some more bumps to get through, but ultimately they're a little tougher, a little smarter, a little stronger. I think it's a good investment, and hopefully the portal doesn't scare them away, to scare the coaches away. And I'm actually getting really good feedback from 4-year coaches because I think they know what they're getting. To your point, they know what they're getting. Versus, you look on the portal and it's a name, it's a number, and you look out on Twitter and maybe you see some video, and is the video, what I mean? It's like, but at least with a JUCO guy, you can go call a coach, talk to, whatever, and get good, accurate information, good, accurate video, but talk to a coach and get, this is exactly what this kid's going to do for you. Give him a little time, but ultimately he's going to be a good player in your program. And I think so at least that's what I'm getting so far. So hopefully that stays true.
I think the other difference too, I was just thinking about this as you were talking about it, Andy, is you come out of the portal, you might be, or you go into the portal, you might be going in there with 3 at-bats.
Yep.
And 2 defensive innings played because you're jumping in the portal to go somewhere else, where as a junior college player, you likely going in there with 130 at-bats and you've played 37 games or you've played 45 games. And there's a lot, those 2 things matched up against each other. Most coaches are going to side with the guy who's had success in those 40 games over the kid who has 2 at-bats. No matter how good your swing looks, no matter what it says, like, this guy has had success, I'm going to go with the one who's had success. So I think that there's, and people are always going to make the decisions to go in the portal and ultimately decisions that lead you to 4-year schools that lead you into those, the going into the portal. But, I think in some regards, you can probably mitigate it a little bit if, you go a little bit further, dig a little bit deeper and say, like, hey, maybe I'm not ready, and junior college is a place for me to be able to go develop and not be a guy who jumps in the transfer portal with 2 at-bats and someone who actually is recruitable coming out of it with 300 plus at-bats and played 70 games at the junior college level versus 2 games and 2 at-bats in the 9th inning of a boat race.
Well, and the other thing too, that you're not limited by the transfer portal window.
Right.
If you're at a junior college, you're recruitable the whole time you're on campus. You can talk to coaches. You have the ability to communicate with coaches, whether you're a one and done guy or somebody who does it the more traditional route where you go for 2 years. You're not confined to the December window, and you're not confined to the window in June and July. So in some ways, you're getting the development portion that we're talking about, but you also have way more runway to figure out the right fit. You're not rushing to try to go see schools or try to find that next home. You've got time to put together a plan. You've got time to figure out what's going to be a good fit for you. And I think that's advantageous as well.
No doubt. I mean, I would think that they would want that flexibility and seeing some numbers, understanding who where they're coming from. Makes perfect sense to me. And again, I am getting good feel for that. I don't know how successful the portal really is right now. I mean, the data I'm looking at is, I don't know, you guys probably maybe looked at it more than I did, but I'm estimating, let's say 4,000, and I'm seeing only 50% are landing somewhere. Does that sound about right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So where's the other 50% go?
Yeah, no, I think, and I asked this question to a former Power 4 coach. And I was like, it's, you just see the portal comes around, you just see all these videos on social media of guys that are 94 to 97. And you look up their numbers and it's, a 15 ERA and a 15 walks to 2 punch outs. And it's like at some point, like the pendulum has to swing back. And to his point, and I do think there's a lot of truth in it. He's like, yeah, but no one's ever been fired for recruiting a 94 mile an hour arm. Guys have been fired for recruiting an 88 mile an hour arm. And I do think there's some truth in that. But like at some point, I think that there's people look at it and it's like, well, I don't know if I can fix that. Whether it's a swing or whether it's an arm path or what your stats are, and those guys aren't landing in a lot of places. And I like, because at the end of the day, to your point earlier, you still have to go play the game. And if you can't play the game, it's going to be hard to eventually find a landing spot because, what are we going to do? Bring in, and with roster restrictions now at the Division I level, and, it's not going to mean much probably for the next 3 years, but at least in the short term, until we get to 30, until it's legit at 34, are you going to waste scholarship money and roster spots on guys that aren't really going to help you? You know what I mean? Like, I think coaches have kind of got like swung to that pendulum. I think has swung a little bit in the way with the transfer portal of like, if they're not going to legitimately be able to come in here and help us, we're just going to we're just going to tell them to get in the portal again next year. So why even go down that road?
Yeah, I think when I'm listening, I'm like, God, you would think that the development piece could be better, and I think should be better with what you have. And I know that there's pressure on coaches. I understand that, and I gladly don't live it. But I still like, when I look at our pitching staff, like, we can have plenty of supinators and plenty of pronators and have lots of guys who are 87, 88 with tons of movement, who throw lots of strikes and who get hitters out. I have this conversation with my pitching coach all the time that, in my years in the Braves organization, where, at that time we were a big changeup organization with Leo Mazzoni, and, we had Glavin and Maddox and all that. So we were a big changeup organization. But every high level, you have to be strike throwers. And if you're not, and if you're not a power pitcher, man, you better throw strikes with certainly 2, if not 3 pitches. And that's still good. You get people out. And I still, when I hear about, 94, 95, 96 on up, and they don't get people out, I struggle with that. I'm like, God, how do you not get people out when you have that kind of velo? And like, well, they're low spin guys and they're middle. They don't have command. And they're like, okay, well, get it there. Maybe how about you be 92 with run or 92 with cut, and you can pound the strike. Like, where is that? I guess that still is a tough thing to swallow for me.
It's a fair question. And I think the other side of it is like, what's your secondary stuff look like too?
Right.
Like, you can have, and I think, and even for Andy and I, we grew up on the 2-wheel jugs machine. Yeah. Where, nowadays you have hack attacks and like all the 3-wheeled machines where you can throw every pitch out there and you can run it up to 100. Like, I don't know if velo scares people as much as it did when we were coming up in this game, where, you go face someone who was, in the 90s and you're like, damn, this is firm. And because you hadn't seen it before, and maybe you had on a jugs machine from a reaction standpoint, but you're hitting yellow balls inside.
Right.
It wasn't really what you were like. Now you can go out and just throw the hack attack on the mound at what you think, some different release point, and hey, here's 96. Like, here's 92. This is what we're going to face. Let's jack it up and see what we can do. And I don't necessarily know if it scares. I don't want to say scares. I don't know if it deters hitters the way it did years ago.
Right.
And, but if you don't have secondary stuff to pair with it, you can just sit dead red fastball. Like, hey, I just got to be on time for a 95-mile-an-hour fastball because the spin isn't good. There's no change up. I'm just going to sit dead red fastball and see what I can do.
Yep.
And which is, to your point, though, like, where's the development? Why don't we have a secondary pitch to pitch off of that? Why aren't we backing it down a little bit? Like, hey, you don't have to be 96 because you're spray and pray. Like, let's be 92 with some run. Yep. And let's run it in on right-handers' hands and make them super uncomfortable in the box with 92 bearing down on them. And then let's pair a slider off of it to, so they're just not opening up and cheating to that fastball. Now they have to respect something that's going to move away from them too.
Yep.
But, I don't know. I agree. Like, I think at some point the pendulum is going to swing back. I just don't know when that is.
I think it is a little bit. I mean, that's my gut. But certainly the philosophy of our program is, you know what? These are the athletes we brought in. We're going to develop you. You are going to leave. Certainly the pitching staff. You're going to have command. You're going to have command of a breaking pitch. You're going to know how to hold runners. You're going to be a good PFP guy. And as far as the hitters go, you're going to be a gap to gap hitter, and you're going to have barrel accuracy. and we're going to develop you so that you are a good, efficient college hitter, and give you a chance as you get older and bigger and stronger. Then let your DNA can kind of kick in and build onto that already built foundation. I just would think NCAA schools, maybe they just don't have the time, and maybe the pressure is too much. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Andy says this all the time. I'll steal his line. Like it's a run prevention sport. Like the whole, you're trying to prevent as many runs as possible and trying to score one more than the other team.
Yeah. Yep.
And how do you do that? Like, you have to be good defensively and you have to be good on the mound. And that starts with flooding the zone, being able to throw strikes, being able to induce ground balls, being able to make the plays when when they happen. And, conversely, obviously trying to beat the other team at being one run better than the other team. And, I just think that we've, in some regards, and in part, I think it's our fault as coaches, as college coaches. Like, we've gotten away from the legitimacy of playing summer baseball. And like legitimately trying to win and do those things where it's a little bit more showcasey, and we just keep showing up to the tournaments.
Yep.
Because it's cheaper from a cost analysis to be able to go to the big tournaments than the one-off games. But like you're losing some of the stuff that you did, and there's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube with it, but and it's not going to be what it was like when Andy and I came up in this, or when it's not Legion baseball. It's not when I played with the Dodgers and you'd go down and play the Virginia Barnstormers and the Connecticut to play TCB and those types of schools or teams, and people would show up.
Yep.
Because, hey, these are the better teams. We're going to watch them play. And now it's like, well, we can just show up at Diamond Nation and watch 540 teams.
Yep.
Throw a dart at a mascot and they're probably going to be there, type thing. And I think I don't want to say it's watered down, because I don't think it's watered down, but like you have, it almost becomes more, because most teams have a guy or two that you should probably check out, and you end up missing.
Yep.
On some of those players. But I think the development piece at the younger ages gets lost because you're not really practicing. You're not going through you're not doing the things it is that you should be doing over the course of a season to kind of get better at baseball. It's just, hey, we'll see you on Friday. Game time's at 3, be here at 2. And we'll warm up and roll the bats and balls out there and let's see what we can do. And we're not going over the things it is that base and the foundation that you're talking about, like you're now having to put in college, where, at least when I went to school, like you had a semblance of a base 20, 25 years ago when we got to college on this stuff. You might not know everything, but at least you had an idea of what bunties looked like, and PFPs and first and thirds, and, shoot, some of our first and third plays were still throw it at the shortstop and then throw it home and hope that you'd get them. Now we've got my favorite play. But or like the pitcher jumps up and catches it and then throws it back home. Like, the low percentage plays, and we've come a long way there. But I feel like there was like, now you get first and thirds at the college level. Towards the tail end of my career, it's like, hey, we're gonna do first and thirds, and it was like, wait, what? What do I do on this play? It's like, we've never run first and third place. Like, the catcher just always threw it to second base. Like, that was like getting catchers to peek to see if the runner's breaking was like one of the banes of my existence. Like, you have to look to see if he's running home. How do I do that? Well, you catch, you turn your head, and your feet are still working towards second base. And if you see him running, then you stop and either make a decision to run at him or throw it at his head so that he ducks and hits the ground, and then the third baseman catches it and tags him. But like little things like that we've talked about this entire podcast, that like those are things that you've probably, like, most kids aren't even taught or even think about, what that looks like in college. And it's not easy to do, but, cutting the ball as the second baseman cut in front if that guy breaks. And, on third, like, what's your read as a third baseman, as a base runner, to our base running point earlier, like, if you see the second baseman breaking in hard, we're going to hold our ground because he's probably looking to cut that ball off. And maybe we take a hard step to see if we can get him to cut, and then we have second and third with one out, whatever it might be. Things like that, there's so much that goes into it. And I think that we missed that foundation that we had, 15, 20 years ago. And I'm not saying it was perfect, but some of this stuff is kind of we've lost that part of it at the younger levels.
Yeah, and I have to bring this up because it's just it's kind of an epidemic, and it's almost more of a bad virus. We are very blessed, and this is a kind of a plug for my catching coach, Corey Brownston, who was a Rawlings Gold Glove Award winner as a college player, was an All Defensive Player of the Year in the when he was at the Braves organization. He just is like the catcher whisperer. This guy sees the game differently, and he also not only could play, obviously was a great player, played for Pitt after he played at Monroe, but he is an exceptional instructor, and he's been he's been with me for almost 12 years now. And he just really just works with our catchers now, but we are concerned about the too much glove movement. It's the stuff that guys see on television, which you guys may or may not watch, but we're watching some of the stuff and we're like, where is this coming from? The overdone framing. I have no problems with guys with nobody on base catching from a knee. My generation of Tony Pena. Hell, when I caught at Ball State, I oftentimes would catch from a knee to rest or go into a Tony Pena stance because I could, and it gave me a nice low target. But guys, I struggle with the fact that we're getting instruction that doesn't make sense for the pitchers that they're catching. How do you catch from a knee when you have pitchers who don't have enough command? They're 16, 17, 18 years old. They don't have the command that a big league pitcher does, right? We all know that. And that instruction still persists, but it also doesn't fundamentally create that good foundation for throwing or blocking, much less now what we're seeing with receiving, where we're getting too much movement pre-pitch versus what used to be just maybe a subtle move up in the strike zone a little bit or a subtle hand squeeze. But as I often say to my catchers and my guys, we don't want to notice you. The less we know you're there, that means you're catching very, very well. And if you're trying to overframe that pitch, that umpire should be ashamed, because that pitch should be called before it gets in your mitt. Right when it crosses the plate, all that stuff you do with it after the fact, I challenge that. And I just think now it's become kind of a virus out there where I'm trying to get guys to have less movement as their frame, and just be subtle, take care of the baseball, show the baseball, take care of it, get it back, let's move on to the next pitch. So sorry about that little tangent, but as we were going into this, I'm like going, oh my God, and that.
I could talk about that for hours.
Oh.
And you and I probably have, and we will when we see each other again. But it bothers me to no end that we're teaching things that it's incredibly hard to do what big league guys are doing. And we're teaching it to kids, to your point, that are catching guys that don't have excellent command, that can't do that do things that 99.9% of the world can't do. Mm-hmm. And it's hard for them to do. And I don't, I'm not the knee thing. I caught on my knees. I got super low, but I'm of the generation and the belief that, to your point, like the less you hear me or the less I move, the better it is. Like that's when I was doing a good job. And that, you're 100% right. Like I think I was a pretty good receiver. I caught a lot of baseball games in college, and I got a lot of strikes called. Like there were umpires where, and there's ways that, without manipulating your glove the way that we do now, like there's ways that you can catch balls and present them, as that make it look better than it was. And there were umpires when I played where I thought I stole a strike and I would go to move off the field. And they're like, no, get back here. You can't fool me. That was a ball. And it's like, and it's not even like, it's subtle. It's not even, I'm catching a ball and extending through it and making it look like a strike. And like, they're like, no, dude, that was 4 inches inside. You ain't getting that ball today. Yep. Like, okay, noted. Now I know now I know how far I can go, but like the catching and pulling it back in and the reverse snap up and the like. And I do think it's I would quarter turn up and go catch the ball. That's just how I did. It was just a small movement with my glove to make sure that like I wasn't going below 3:00 and getting thumped.
Yep.
Like now it's like the complete, like we've completely flipped it on its head of turning it down and then snapping it up there. And it's like, there's so much movement. You have to be so precise with everything instead of just like, I can just turn my glove and catch the ball and be firm with it and move on with my life.
Yep.
And no, I am firmly in your camp, Coach.
Well, good to hear. Yeah, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent on that one, but God, it just popped into my head like going, oh my God. And thank God I have, I think programs are always that position does probably get neglected, and it never should. It's, in my opinion, it's the pitcher and the catcher are the two most important jobs on the field. We all know that, and until you get there, and it's not good. And it's certainly been a tradition in Monroe's history. We've had great catchers. I mean, we've been blessed with great catchers, and I'm blessed that I have an exceptional coach who teaches very fundamentally sound catching, and he's played at all the levels other than the big league. So this guy gets it, and they need to do those fundamentally sound movements correctly before they can get into the other sexier parts, what they see on television. That's just stuff. Right.
Agreed. Yes.
Well, last question here, Coach. If you were going to give a couple pieces of advice to the listeners about what's important as they go through the recruiting process, what would you leave them with?
I would say, number one, you have to have player identity. You have to have an honest look in the mirror and understand this is what I can do, this is what I can't do, and maybe this is what I can do as I get older, develop, get bigger, get stronger. But that player identity piece, I know we certainly talk about it with our players because they're going to be recruited again. And they have to know and be honest about what they can and can't do. The other piece would be, it's a big world out there. There are lots of options. And because there are so many options and so many good baseball programs in the NCAA and certainly in NJCAA and certainly in NAIA, that you should really do your homework on history of programs, on history of the coaches, where have they been, and you should visit and go on visits and go on as many visits as you can. And the beauty of junior college, you can practice while going through that recruiting period, which is really, there is no dead period in junior college athletics for recruiting for baseball. Practice with them. And I like when a recruit can come on in and practice. So not only can I see their actions live, I can see how they are, communicating with other players, and but they can also see how we do business, because we want it to be a good marriage. And I want them to be able to, look at how we do business, look at our facilities. So going on those visits and, if you're going down the junior college road, that is a great option. And I think lastly is, it is so tough now with the NCAA that if you're not getting love as a junior, and certainly the very, in August before your senior year, it might be time to move on, and understanding how the portal is working and how it's really not in favor of the guys coming out of high school. And so I wouldn't spend too much time with, if you're not, unless you're headed to an academic school and it's a Division III program, that type of thing, that's a whole nother conversation. But if you're looking for that scholarship program and it's just not there, move on. So to a place where you're going to have choices, because, right. I mean, my own experience, my body changed a lot from my senior year. I was a skinny little shortstop, and I turned into a catcher, who I was a singles hitter at best. I was a good singles hitter, but I was a singles hitter. I was, and then I turned into a power hitting left-handed hitter catcher. No one would have thought that. So, their bodies are going to change quite a bit. And I think they need to be in a place where they'll appreciate that at a junior college program.
Well said. Well said. Well, Coach, we really appreciate your time. Thank you for giving us an hour and a half of your time on a Monday evening. And yeah, this was awesome. I think we were able to touch on some stuff that we haven't had the opportunity to talk to with anybody else. And yeah, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, no, guys, thanks for having me on. I love to talk baseball, and it's great to see you guys, and so helpful with everything with Brennan. And that's a great example for folks, right? An academic kid, an outstanding player, athlete, and he took a step back to go forward. And I think because of your guidance and hooking them up with us, it was a win-win for everybody. But I can't thank you guys enough for thinking of us and keeping us in mind. And I appreciate you. And hopefully we'll see each other soon.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for listening this week. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and smash that like button for us. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at EMD Baseball. If you want to find out what me and Keith do to help families and players navigate the recruiting process, go ahead and check us out on emdbaseball.com. Take a few minutes to check out our new online academy. I promise you'll get some good information out of that. Thanks again for listening. Check in with you next week.